and indeed a former Minister of Education, amongst other key government portfolios that is held, a former Secretary General, East African Community, now the Chairman, Education Review Commission. And as I know, is also a fantastic golfer. He's neither retired nor tired. Right Honorable Amanya Mushega, you're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. I was trying to catch up with the protocol arrangements. The honorable ministers present, headed by the Honorable Rebecca Kadaga, the first Deputy Prime Minister of Uganda and Minister for East African Affairs, and also to add the former Deputy Speaker and the Speaker in Emeritus of Uganda, the Speaker of the East African Legislative Assembly, our distinguished keynote speaker, Professor Lumumba, former Speaker of the IARA, ladies and gentlemen. I was briefed a few days ago to come and make some hopefully provocative statements and stimulate a discussion. I was not ready to begin, but you must always be ready for any time, like all Christians, because they say Jesus can knock any time. So when he knocked, I was not sleeping. And former friends and new friends I met today. I was asked to talk about the East African community integration process and my own personal experiences. I'm not fond of talking about it with the first person, but I'm forced to do so because I'm supposed to be referring to my experiences in the integration process. First of all, my computer was taken away, so I was forced to make some notes. Let me start this way for the general situation of the Africans. Because if you don't know that you are sick, it's not possible to get sick for medical treatment. To start with, and you don't have to agree with me, the Africans are the most disrespected, the most humiliated, the most despised and mistreated race on earth. From the time of slavery, through colonialism, even today. We are disrespected abroad when we go abroad. We're even disrespected by people who find us here, both during the colonial times and today. These things my brother was talking about of Uganda club, Yamukana in Arusha, golf. There were many writings there. Dogs and Africans are not allowed to come in. So that's where they have taken us to be. And I don't think that attitude has changed, except the language is a little bit more polite. Recently, there was a tape they were released by the State Department in America, where in 71, Reagan was talking with the governor. President Nixon was talking with the governor Reagan then, when the Africans voted on the assembly to admit China as a member of the five, those with the veto. And they were shocked to see these monkeys, that's their conversation, dancing on the floor. I remember the representative of Tanzania, then Salim Ahmed, danced, and when his turn came to be appointed Secretary General of the United Nations, one of his setbacks and crime is that he danced when China was admitted to the UN, and he made a member of the Security Council instead of Taiwan. So he was voted on those grounds, and that's not far away. I was then in the university. We get disrespected at home, at times by our visitors, the foreigners, at times by ourselves, each other, and occasionally by our own governments. That is the general state of the African people. We are perceived as beggars, ready to receive aid and arms, ready to be pitied if we are not full of self-pity ourselves. And I think some of you MPs are experiencing that in the country. I know most. People come to you regularly, think that really by being elected an MP, you are now the solver of all problems. And we also take on that mantra. Suddenly, by becoming an MP, you have all the solutions on weddings, in churches, burials, baptisms. If your presence is not there, you must send a message accompanied by an envelope. As if that was not enough, all the bad things and calamities in the world, disease, abject poverty, so we are perceived and we're made to perceive ourselves. Famine caused by drought, and then followed by famine caused by floods. Lack of rain, we suffer. With the rain, we suffer. Tolagewa. We are told that the worst effects of climate change, to which we have contributed little, if at all, awaits us in the sub-Saharan Africa. A polite way of saying Black Africa. Sub-Saharan Africa means nothing except Black Africa. Originally, it was Africa south of the Sahara and north of the Limpopo. And don't be shocked when in South Africa, and some Africans said, "Are you from Africa?" Of course, I don't want to mention the other countries because let me also try to be a diplomat. You are there and they say, "I've never been to Africa," and yet they are members of the AU. We are really taken to be in bad shape. The evil predictions of COVID came to pass. You know, they were saying COVID will hit Africa most because they are not vaccinated, they have no facilities, 20 were not killed. The question was, why didn't we die? I'm sure you see this going on. Even there were teams already coming here, how to deal with the post-COVID results in Africa. Their bags are still packed. And this debate is still going on, why we have not died. If we are to enhance self-respect, confidence, and pride, we have to put our resources, human and the diverse national resources, we always call potential in order to spur development and improve their lives and self-respect of the African people. As we all know, we are the most balkanized continent, accompanied by a lot of seats in the UN, and yet very few pay serious attention to us. We are very poor at respecting our own institutions, and this will come to the AEC institutions, our own institution, laws, and arrangements we ourselves have made. Let me talk of the opportunity to quote the former Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Zenawi. I attended a meeting of the African Subcommittee on Integration in Abuja, I think in 2004. The Rex were invited to attend and take note. And when we were discussing the way forward, then Zenawi told the other heads of state, there were 9 of them. I still recall their names. He said, what is wrong with we Africans? And he was talking about African leaders. We make an agreement knowing very well we are not going to implement it. And after that, we continue to make agreement after agreement. That was the head of government speaking, knowing very well that when we go back, we are not going to implement them. He had a medical background, and he used a medical term which I've never recalled. And the person I traveled with as a technical assistant has so recently passed on. But the head of state himself was saying, what's wrong with us? To fellow presidents, we make agreements and we know that we are not going to implement them. I hope when it comes that our Minister of East African Affairs will have something to say. And we're also comfortable in our comfort zones, which have also been coined for us. Terminologies like third world, Africa south of the Sahara. Is not rare to find our own leaders, political, intellectual, clerical, stating clearly, but by our own standards, we are doing well. We have coined our own standards in the corner. They are the world standards, and there are standards for us called third world countries. I remember when I was younger, there was a big debate between late Mwalimu Nyerere and Indira Gandhi. Indira Gandhi was arguing that you cannot call yourself third world. If you condemn yourself mentally, you are likely to be so physically. And the difference between the two countries is there to see. So we like it out. We are being termed, and the World Bank is very good at singing that tune when they are announcing results for Africa. Africa south of the Sahara. Just replace that one with Black Africa. That's what it actually means. So you exclude the North because the people living there, sometimes they forget the Africans. And now you cannot exclude the South because the Africans have taken over. Those third world standards have been dismissed by the Olympic Games and World Cup. I had, in other words, in reality, there can only be one standard. One sun rising for all of us and setting for all of us. If whether it's in Kinshasa or Mombasa, we're in those comfortable zones, and something has to be done. I had a chance to be a minister for sports in Uganda for 7 years. Originally, each country could take as many people as it wanted to the Olympics. And there was a huge hall there, stretching open 24 hours a day. I remember one country would send people, they began to engage in good eating. By the time their hits are called, they're incapable of performing. So I think the organizers sat down and said, we are tired of these Africans. Now they set down qualifying standards. To run 100 meters, you must have clocked so many seconds. To do high jump, you must have done so many meters or feet up. So that tourists have now been removed and only people going to compete go. But that was the case before. I saw it. the beginning, because we're just people who just buy a ticket, relatives and friends of Olympic Committee, and go, whether they are running or not, and the cost to the organizers, because we ourselves rarely organize those meetings. I would like also to point out that we should stop judging and comparing ourselves with the mediocres. I'm okay because the whole class failed. Is nobody who passed? By our standards, we have done very well. Even now in the community, and very going to be candid in this discussion, they have started lowering qualification standards in order to accommodate those who may not meet them. If high jump was 2 meters, now put it at 1.5 meters so that I can qualify. My own view is that standards should be standards. And if you meet them, you should go to improve so that even after you, those who come can actually meet their standards. If we don't do so, we shall continue to compare ourselves with mediocres instead of changing our mindset and comparing ourselves and stating ourselves against the best of the best. Another point pertinent to this point of view is respect and pride in our own institutions. We create institutions and we don't give them the respect we give to other people's institutions. I will candidly compare the attendance of the East African Community Council Ministers meetings and the summit compared to those when our leaders go to the Commonwealth, go to the Africa-China Summit, Africa-India Summit, Africa-Japan Summit. Watch at how many people go, watch how long they stay, and watch the treatment they will receive. And compare with how much time when did the summit in Arusha, in Nairobi, how much time, how many attend? I've had the opportunity to compare these points I'm making here today with the president here in Uganda and probably another president or two. So they are not strange to him. The most painful one was the recent summit in China, where the president of China would be standing at the entrance door, receiving one head of state after another. Comes in, shakes hands on the side, photo finished, phew. Another one. And you say, yet when you come to a meeting in Africa, BAU or in our case, EAC, I attended the recent summit in Arusha. I think out of the 7 presidents, 4 were present, 2 by their prime ministers, and the other by a minister. I don't think a minister would go to China or India to attend the summit there, and they spend a week. I raised this concern when I was Secretary General with my bosses as to what is to be done. And that's the matter for them. They did some changes themselves. Now at least the original, they would come in the morning and leave in the evening. Now I'm pleased to note that my successors did a better job. Now they arrive a day before, stay the whole day, and occasionally go the following day. In other words, we should pay more attention to our own child we have delivered than the child of a cousin or a neighbor, because they happen to have better resources than yourself. Then how will you build your own? Nobody can love you better than yourself. My colleagues, we have the minimum respect for the colonial boundaries in which we played no part in creating them. And we are ready to shed blood under the spurious belief that we are indeed sovereign. But are we really sovereign? Some of these boundaries place a whole country in a desert. They tuck some of the countries in the mountain and even put drawing lines along the bankers of a river and declare it a country. Sometimes you have to cross one country in order to visit your country again. Something has to be done. Look at the tragedy that is likely to befall Lake Victoria, a common resource. For starters, why should Lake Victoria be called Victoria of England? What has she got to do with our common resource? But that's not the most important part. Lake Victoria is already dying, had happened, had had a study for the community. The pollution going on in the lake. We have the Lake Victoria Commission, but it's not empowered, I'll say later, to take decisions that impact on partner states. Yet the leaders, the investors who come to fish, they call themselves these different in Kisumu, in Musoma, in Mwanza, in Okoba, in Jinja, yet they are the same company. And when they catch the big fish and they want more, they start allegations, which I witnessed as Secretary General, that Tanzania now is using a net from Lake Tanganyika. So they provoke Uganda also to lower the size. They are the ones provoking it so that they can catch the fish, make money, and if the fish get finished in the lake, they move on to the next investment and leave us with our polluted lakes short of fish. It is we to take the bull by the horn, and you, the legislators, pay attention to these details so that our children and grandchildren are not sentenced to poor living conditions. My view, honorable members of parliament, in reality, these boundaries we so much worship are ropes around our necks and prison walls in which we are camped. And I'm not afraid to say that sometimes some of our leaders act like prison warders, at times with firm grips and canes, keep us in line. I mean, try to do this. Things can happen within the boundaries of that country, and the neighbor is supposed to say nothing because those are internal affairs. But in Africa, even when your neighbors are exchanging unfriend and the blows, it is abundant that when the other neighbors come in and say, what's going on? We can overcome these hindrances by creating bigger entities within which common people can move and exchange views. I find it extremely odd that an Acholi in Pabo regards another Acholi in South Sudan, as a foreigner, and realizes the struggle is very hard to make ends meet with another citizens from the Mahavura Mountains. Yet their gardens transcend the borders. So integration will help us to overcome the consequences of these artificial borders to which we did not contribute and they had to remove, but they can be administrative. So the late Agura War of Uganda can meet Muda War in Kenya without having to seek passports. What is the issue of sovereignty? We, the victim of these borders, take them seriously but those who benefit from them actually don't recognize them. If you watch CNN, you watch Al Jazeera, you watch BBC, even the CTV of China, you see them discussing Africa as one huge territory and looking at the boundaries only for purpose of tactical maneuvers. When these leaders visit Africa, they look at us as one common resource. They are like an eagle in the air, looking at many chickens on the ground and deciding which to pick one at a time. They approach each country tightly as if it means a lot, when actually all these countries have policies about Africa, not about Uganda. Uganda comes in as a component about Africa, about the African command. One commander of those forces for the whole continent. Yet for us, we have several commanders for each unit from territory to the other. Recently, you may have observed the United States Congress was trying to pass a law to deal with those who did not support the West position on the on the Russia-Ukraine conflict, allegedly because they were hurting American interests. Who will protect African interests? Can any single state in East Africa do it alone? You are being attacked by you are trying to behave the way you like. You are now causing problems for interests of others. And it seems there are no African interests. And we seem also not to develop African interests. That is why when we were in Arusha last week on Kadaga, you heard that. People were complaining, why should you have a slogan, buy Uganda, buy Tanzania, buy Kenya, and at the same time we are creating a common market of 300 souls. As I said, we need to develop some resources, some way of developing our goods as a common resource, and also having an African perspective or an East African perspective to African issues. Last Saturday, I had the opportunity to travel by road from Arusha to Nairobi. At Namanga, as I crossed, they have created a common, whatever they call it, border post. It is Tanzania here, Kenya here. So you stamp, instead of being there and here, they have brought you together, but cemented the border actually. It's like removing a chain link, two chain links which were there and here, but creating one cement wall with one gate in and out. There are still borders. And I became nostalgic. And since you had asked me to share my experiences, and of course, these borders are for the youth, the well-to-do and the businessmen. Ordinary people just walk across with their donkeys and cows, the Maasai. You'll see them, they're grazing. So these ropes are more for you rather than for the others. It reminded me of one thing. One time, President Bizimungu came here on a state visit, and I was asked to escort him back to Rwanda. At the border of the Rwanda in the evening, we crossed together and he addressed the rally. While I was busy putting my passport to the immigration officials, about half of the crowd was walking across back to Uganda. So I asked him in local language that, hey, I thought you are from Rwanda. We are going to give him support. They walked in and walked out. If somebody escorting the president had to walk through the gates. So it reminded me of things I'll share with you. In 1967, December, I was doing A level. This what Namanga reminded me of. Our teachers took us to climb Mount Kenya. All I recall is that they drove their cars, went through the borders, I think with a piece of paper, went and climbed and came back. A year later, in April 1968, I was on a team going to climb Mount Kilimanjaro with other people from Tanzania, Uganda, and Kenya. Again, I went by bus. We drove from here, found ourselves in Nairobi, climbed the mountain, and came back. 1969-70, I went to the University of Dar es Salaam. We used to go by road, rail, and air. You'll get on a train in Kampala, find yourself in Nairobi. The following day, you get on a train to Dar es Salaam. When you get to Voi, because there is a T junction, you hear the train jig-jagging. If you are in the air, you got on a plane in Entebbe, landed in Nairobi, landed in Mombasa, and eventually Dar es Salaam, without any paper, except your piece of paper from the university. In other words, the flights then were regarded as a flight from here to Kasese or to Gulu. But now, with high level of integration, you have to be stamped like 3 times before you complete the same journey. I did more than 30 years ago, smoothly. So where are we going? And these borders, common thing they call it, are sponsored by the European Union. In 2004, I was in Germany on official visit, and I chose to come back through Paris by road, or Paris. Those who were from Congo didn't cause me problems. Paris. So I got into a car, drove from Germany, through Netherlands, through Belgium, France. And the driver was telling me, now we are crossing in the Netherlands. That garden, you see those flowers, part of it is in Germany, the other one Netherlands. Why don't they give us what they do? But the fault is ours. Because when they were building that Namanga Road, our then Secretary General proposed that why don't we have a road running from Arusha to Kenya? Why put another board again if we intend to integrate? Of course, as you see, it was not done. But it's you to think broadly, to think widely, and push your governments and bureaucrats to be East African, to be East Africans, and for our own survival. Even if it means you are not elected the next round. After all, one day you will not be elected. By the way, I want to remind you, I was a member of parliament. The first 10 years not elected, the next 5 years elected. Don't tell me how I was not elected and then became member of parliament. That was not part of my terms today. So my wonder was then, as I crossed and remembered all this, are we moving forwards? We have taken some steps backwards. If we are to raise incomes and standard of living of East Africans, raise pride, self-confidence, and respect and esteem, build viable institutions for research and innovations, build viable industries for our market, survive as a race and a people, we need to put resources, we need to unite as a matter of necessity. Let me point out that earlier there were large attempts of creating larger units. Of course, before the Bazoum came here, there were wars raging on in Munyoro, in Uganda, Wahe in Tanzania, all over the place. What myself I call wars of territorial expansion. People, leaders were trying to create bigger territories. Like the Germans did and the Italians did. And the British did by first taking over Wales, then Scotland, then Ireland, before they came for us. Those attempts were there, but these people came and called them tribal wars. They were not tribal wars. These leaders were trying to conquer one another and subjugate them and create a bigger territory for viable reasons. And a gentleman called Kabarega, when he was squeezed in a corner, he had to persuade his friend Mwanga that look here, we are fighting each other for no purpose. There is a bigger enemy coming. They put up a united front. We are not taught about this, but we are taught about Sasam with PEACA. These people are fought to keep East Africa united. Our territory is so independent, but they were then they fought for a total of over 6 years. So that one was, you can research on your own. I didn't want to mention that, just to mention, stimulate your interests. But there was a vibrant community before, with effective services, institutions. It had a common curriculum, common exams, common examinations, East African Examination Council. Me, I remember reading the geography of East Africa, the map of East Africa, the history of East Africa. But now, as a Minister of Education, we are not only teaching about Uganda, but sometimes smaller units. But that is not for the purpose of today, because that's not a friendly discussion. I leave it for today. If you look at the world, the territories really they are cut, oh Jesus. And it was so attractive and envied that Zambia, Somalia, Sudan, Ethiopia had applied, and Burundi had applied to join. Unfortunately, this envy of many in the world broke up badly, acrimoniously, and left bad blood in the mouths of the countries and territories. How and why it broke down, I leave for you to conjecture and find out, do some homework, so that we try to avoid the mistakes of the past in order to perform better. However, there were lingering memories of the good old times. Sometimes our children, when they play music, they say, oh, that was the music of your times. Then I ask them, whose times are these? Eh? You think I'm not around? But it's good to have memories in order to make you recover. So the new one will survive, under which we are now discussing, with a lot of caution, implicitly trying to avoid and minimize the pitfalls of the old one that collapsed. That is why in the new treaty, it is supposed to be people-centered, private sector driven, to avoid power being centered in the hands of the summit. And most decisions are made at the level of council of ministers. They also opted for a small secretariat because the old community had really a big government in Arusha and partner states. The assumption was that most of the work will actually be done in the partner states. I have a different view that it actually did not become the case. And unity would be a process by process, if you remember, process by process. Customs union, common market, monetary union, and eventually federation. All attempts were made to minimize power being in the hands of the heads of state and the secretariats. What has the new community done? I'll just mention a few highlights. They are a lot for you to add on. One, it is still alive. The old community collapsed within 10 years. This one is now 20 years plus. I don't want to go into mathematics of adding, but you can do the adding from 2000 to now, over 20 years. I think it has had now about 5 secretaries general. And the speakers, they came later. I think they also several, I could count in my hands. There are 4 or 5 so far. So it is still limping on and improving in the process. I would like to thank my predecessors, Ambassador Francis Madaura, and Late Kasaura, and Dr. Nahamia, for their small team that did a lot of wonders, what they called confidence building measures. Because the community had broken up badly, especially between Tanzania and Kenya. The borders were closed. Uganda, we did not feel the impact because we were already in a coma. And I mean, people are running away. Those who are inside were struggling to survive. You know, when you are in induced coma, you don't know that things are happening outside. So that's why Ugandans don't have as much pain in this process as the other two. And whenever they were in a meeting, if somebody came with a file, like I was seated there, to walk out, they would carry their file with them. If Tanzania raised the point, Kenya would go for a break, and vice versa. We found that process going on, but I'm sure those of you go to those assemblies today, you see a lot of flow of information, but it has been on the hard way. And I pay spiritual respect and tribute to them. The Lake Victoria is active. There have been a lot of associations in place, business, doctors, lawyers, NGOs, institutions. The Lake Victoria Commission is in place, East African Development Bank, Inter-University of East Africa, and many others. Our currencies are free convertible. You can walk into Kenya, Uganda shillings, and Tanzania, and you'll change them in any bureau. Passports are available. Although some people who are never satisfied say that it should be allowed to travel beyond East Africa. Why don't you first travel within your own country before you talk about going to England? I remember when I was a minister, we had a meeting of cabinet meeting in Uguru. A good number of the ministers from the south had never crossed beyond Bombo. They were what do you call them? Tourists, and vice versa. This is a good beginning. Later on, it can be enhanced. People can now move across borders much more easily. Customs in place, common market in place. It could be expanded. So there are a lot of things that have happened in this short time of 20 years that we can build on, strengthen, and do better. But what are the challenges I want to point out for you? Then you add on your own. Number one, the community says it is people-centered. Is it actually people-centered? Are the people at the center of this integration process? Do they even know about it? You honorable MPs, if you check in your campaign manifestos, how many mention East Africa? This is for your internal consumption. Don't disclose your internal secrets, but you ponder how many in the party manifestos, in the preachings. Yet I remember when I was young, there were relatives working in Moshi, working in Iringa, working in Mombasa. People knew something called East Africa, and everything was East African. So in my view, the community is not yet people-centered. Something has to be done to make them become the center of the integration process, become aware of it, and participate in it. And one of the routes is their respective MPs, who are many now, to take on this challenge so that when they're in their constituencies, one of the organizers in this meeting happened to pass through his constituency regularly. And the other one I was passing through, and he was bringing a man who had got a gold medal to show him the people in that territory. I was impressed. I would like to see him next time introducing the Speaker of the South African Assembly, the Secretary and other MPs from East Africa to the constituencies in order to make this. I'm using that one as an example. Is it private sector driven, or is it still driven by bureaucrats and politicians? Recently, there was a summit in Arusha organized by the East African Business Council, and they were complaining that until then, there have been observers. But of course, respect is not earned. Respect is not bestowed. Respect is earned and earned the hard way. So it's incumbent upon the legislators, incumbent upon the businessmen to make their impact felt, not to leave it to others to recognize them. If you, honorable MPs, if you want to compare with yourself, before you became an MP, I think you had fewer people recognizing you. Now I think there are more people recognizing you and calling you honorable and calling you for all sorts of things, because you have increased your self-respect and status. So that should be done. Are we trading with each other enough? If so, how much? How much is the cross-border trade, what they call informal? For me, I think that's the most formal. Recently, in this summit again in Arusha, it was revealed that inter-African trade East Africa is at about 13%. They compared with the European Union at over 70%. And Asian countries at over 50%. You see, when you compare yourself with others, but if you compare yourself, of course, with the COMESA, with the IGAD, with the ECOWAS, the East African community was very proud that it has been declared the most efficient regional integration unit in Africa. So in the third world countries, we are number one. But in the real trade world, we need to do a retake. Are we expanding at a normal rate? By the way, one of the achievements is that we have expanded from 3 countries to 5 to 6, now 7, and Somalia is knocking. So are we expanding at a normal rate, at a slow rate, or at a faster rate? You need to seize yourselves with these informations so that you can guide your parliaments when you are ratifying laws and domesticating the laws passed in Arusha by Honorable Kadaga and her friends. Are we complying with the requirements of the East African community? If we do so, how much? Are we giving all the attention and commitment to support the community at our different levels? And most importantly, whose market we seeing of 300 souls, whose market is it? Is it a market for East African investors or a market for Japan, China, and other people? If we are trading 13% among ourselves, who is taking the other percentage of 87? Are we seriously promoting our local investors so that we can also have the Rockefellers, the Toyotas of our time, since we have gone to common market? If we are not doing enough, you members of parliament, what do we need to do to promote this process? Do the respective parliaments pay attention, if at all, to the integration process? If not so, which I think is the case, what should be done? Is the Legislative Council of East Africa doing enough? I had a few discussions with the current speaker and the former speakers. When they come and meet in Kampala, next time in Bujumbura, another time in Kigali, have they actually awakened the people of East Africa to the integration process? Or we could do more by having outreach programs at less cost, because you don't have to move with computers, with the secretariat, with everybody, for people to know and ask, who are you and what are you doing? I remember one time when the Pope visited Cuba, and when he was talking with Castro, he's reported to have asked, but then what do you do? So what should be done? Do governments themselves and institutions do enough? For example, do our bureaucrats, ministers, and ministers prepare enough when they are going with the community meetings in Arusha? And when they get there, do they sit in those meetings from beginning to end so that they can pay full attention for what they chose to do? Above all, what should be done to make East Africans thirsty for the integration process and push for it? I tell you a story of President Mkapa. The late President Mkapa told us once in an international investors conference in Dar es Salaam that a businessman sent his salesman to go and sell. When the salesman came in the evening, he asked him how much he had sold. He said he had done little, and he said, you can take the horse to the well, but you cannot force it to drink. President Mokapa, in his own humorous way, he said the master told his salesperson that your job is not to take the horse to the well. Your job is to make it thirsty. Once it is thirsty, it's obvious. It will automatically do what? Look for the water. So have we made the East African citizens thirsty for the integration process, so that in the process now, they can look for and demand for that process? I'm told that the Hitotans in the Sahara Desert, when they don't know where the oases are, they catch a baboon and hold it for hours or some days until it is really thirsty. Then when they release it, it automatically runs to where the water points are. And since they're equally also audacious, both of them arrive and drink as comrades in arms. So our job is also to make our people and our citizens thirsty for the integration processes by pointing out the benefits that accrue from it. So it is you who chose to do this work, and it is incumbent upon you to do the best you can. Finally, let me say what is to be done to strengthen the integration process. From my own point of view, one, strengthen the EAC bodies and institutions, IALA, the court, and especially the secretariat. And I'm appealing Honorable Kadaga and her partners. Please send to the community, leadership, and secretariat, and assembly the best of your best. If we have not done it before, please let's do it. Even if that best person is from an organization you don't like, but you think on the scorecard he can do better than your cousin, please do so for the integration, for the interest of the integration. Especially those who got the community as speakers, who got the community as secretary general, who got the community. Me, I was not that good, but you do better than me. 10 times. Then you will know when you are looking for places. In my time, you could not go in Ankara there. You could jump a school of your nearest and go to a school of your religious foundation. This is not the case today. You find now parents looking for the scorecard, taking their children to the best schools, taking their children to the best hospitals, taking their children to the best joints. So let's not use East Africa as a place of refuge. Let us send there, in my opinion, the best of our best. Improve on what we have been doing. Then I will discuss with Honorable. I think originally these offices were rotating, but if you want to make somebody effective, 5 years is not enough. You may have to rethink on the tenure of these leaders in the East African community. And personally, I was not happy when they started using the East African Secretariat as a center of employment, rather than a center of research and the brain of integration process in East Africa. Now they have a rule that for you to work in the Secretariat, your contract is renewed once. Instead of as it was before, working until you are 60, until either you are approved until you are 60 or you will drop out before. Because if you apply for a job and you know that you may not be renewed, you will be spending half of the time. If you are a meeting in Abuja, a meeting in Washington, you're looking for other opportunities. And obviously, when you are in your last contract, you will pay very little attention to the community matters, because personal survival takes sway. My view is that that should be reviewed so that the Secretariat can be a think tank of the community and the members can serve as normal. It becomes a kind of small civil service for East Africa and have institutional memory. But to look at it as a place where you divide jobs and lower standards when you cannot meet them will not be good for our integration process. We should also have sanctions for non-compliance. Really, somebody to behave badly to Mukwatako, I don't think it is good for the community. Let me say it clearly. There are some member states who have not paid their contributions for over 5 years. And yet the members continue to draw salaries and enjoy the benefits. I think something should be done to make, if you join a club, you join it and its rules and regulations. My fellow golfers will know that we have some people who come to the golf club and because they are big, they want to play with escorts around them. But that's another area. You know, behavior can follow you very well. So I presume that when you join an organization, play by its rules and you sign to comply. That is not my area, man. Just commenting, by the way, from personal experience. We should create more bodies with vested interests to spur and push the integration process. The intellectual community, the business community, the professional bodies, research bodies, so that they can research and influence government and legislators, even when you are campaigning, to ask you, by the way, what is your view about the success of the community? Rather than asking you, the other day my child died and you don't come for the burial. I was baptized my child and you are not there. I think some of you meet those things. I also saw a bit of them, so I'm not totally ignorant. We should change our respective curricula so that we can teach about East African unity in our institutions and have centers for East African study in our institutions of higher education. Let me say this again. The community is supposed to be city-centered. Let us do all that we can manage to do to make the people of East Africa the main beneficiaries and a reflection, and not just a statistic and a market for fortune seekers, to measure and say, when the community started, the standards of living were here, the quality of life were here, the quality of information were here. Now it has moved from here to there. That way, we shall say that we are succeeding. I thank you.
I also realize that Africans have not learned how to clap properly. Let us give him a proper applause for that. We really must thank Honorable Amanya Mushega. Rightly, he was the best person to be East African's Secretary General, EAC Secretary General. And he had promised to give us some provoking thoughts. I believe he has provoked many of us. There are several issues that he has brought out, comparing ourselves with mediocrity, how we should avoid mistakes from the past, the integration process, and whether we are following it process by process, whether we are actually ESC people-centered or private sector-led, and what can be done to make East Africans thirsty for those thoughts.
been that this is the right time is still a challenge. We are trading below 20%. It is better than the intra-trade in Africa, which is around 15% and commerce at 8%. And this is where we need to concentrate. As legislators, how do we come up with laws that can enable us to trade more with ourselves as opposed to preferring to trade with outsiders? There is still a lot of protectionism here in our country and elsewhere. We are continually seeing buy Uganda, buy Kenya, build Uganda. I think we need to unlock ourselves and increase the level of trade. The other challenges that we see, of course, like ourselves, we are part of Africa. The whole continent accounted for 2.9% of the world production about 2 years ago, and 2.6% of the world trade, despite we being about 16% of the world population. So we are still very unproductive as East Africans, as Africans. We still have high dependency on primary goods and high concentration rates that hamper our export growth potential. A lot of trade, a lot of imports. We import a lot of materials, a lot of machinery, because we are not innovating. And we also export our raw material instead of adding value here. So that is hampering our growth. Within the EAC, we have seen that the member states' trade over the years has increased by over 70%, by 60.75% on average, since the Common Market Protocol was launched in 2010. So, like I mentioned earlier, everybody has gained. All partner states have recorded growth. Therefore, our forum, as we come here to discuss, if you have looked at the numbers, the trade within the region has been an indicator that when we come together, we all benefit. And therefore, that's why we think as a forum, we need to continue advocating for better policies that unlock the potential. Now we have new member states which have come on board. How do we tap into opportunities? If we are members of parliament and we are from border communities, how do we involve the border communities to tap into the benefits of being members of EAC? We cannot continue celebrating the potential that we have if we continue enlarging as member states of EAC, but the inter-trade is not expanding. That will be an indicator that we are not exploiting the benefits of integration. So as we get new members on board, we need to do our work as parliamentarians. One of the issues we need to deal with is how do we domesticate the laws that are enacted in Arusha. I was doing some research and I noted that some of the laws that we had here are not consistent with the Common Market Protocol. They need to be revised. And I think that is the picture within the region across. So we need to clean out, to do the cleaning job, to make sure that our laws that we do as members of parliament are enabling the community to take advantage of the opportunities and also enable our people to prosper. I want to end here and thank you for listening to me, and believe that we shall have a wonderful discussion today and tomorrow as the Parliamentary Forum I want to thank the members of the forum for your support. I want to appreciate our team who have been working very hard for this to happen. But above all, I want to thank our chief guest for accepting our invitation. I thank the speaker, the keynote speaker, and all the members who have come. Thank you very much.
Honorable Katashumba, thank you so much. Thank you for those insightful words. And I think he has given us a really good brief about the situation within East Africa and the hopes that they have as the forum. He's talked about the different factors hampering our economic growth and also how to tap into the opportunities in the East African community. I know here in our midst, we have got some of our partners that are trying already to tap into progress in ESC. And notably, of course, there are members from Uganda Bati. Thank you for joining us today. Members from Oxfam, thank you as well. Seatini, thank you for all your input. Now, distinguished guests, I'm sure if you look at your program, you're wondering if we are coming or we are going. Don't worry, that is one of the challenges we have in integration. But let us take it all in our stride. We hoped to have a really interactive session today. And this is the point when we'd like to have your input. We have had two presentations this morning. We've just heard from Honorable Katashumba and from Honorable Amanya Mashega. Now, what are your thoughts? This is the time when we'd like to have your inputs, whatever questions that you might have for them, or any comments that you'd like to be expressed here today. So at this juncture, I would like to throw this back to everybody. Talk to us. And then thereafter, we shall proceed with the rest of the program. So if you have an issue or you'd like to raise something, kindly raise your hand wherever you are, and a microphone will be brought to you. I can see there's one hand up in the middle already.
Hello.
So kindly introduce yourself, and then you can go ahead with your comments.
My name is Rachel Magola, Woman MP, Bugweri District. I'd like to thank the presenters, and from all that they have said, obviously, integration is the way to go. My question at the moment to Honorable Katashumba, we have an issue with the rice growing communities in Uganda, where lately their sales have gone down because the importation from Tanzania has gone up by
Honorable
almost.
Magola, allow me to interrupt you very briefly. We are being joined by the Right Honorable Deputy Speaker of the Parliament of Uganda, Honorable Thomas Taiwa. Can we give him a welcome, an African welcome? Honorable Taiwa, you're most welcome. Thank you for joining us today. We are just in the middle of a discussion, and Honorable Magola had the floor right now. So Honorable, you may continue.
Thank you. I was just saying that there has been a 400% increase in trade in rice importation from Tanzania. And yet Ugandan rice farmers had been encouraged with the Buy Uganda, Build Uganda, and a lot of investment was put in the rice growing industry in Uganda. And right now, the importation from Tanzania is stifling the rice growers of Uganda. What can you say to that? Because we think our industry in the rice business has been stifled by the imports from Kenya and from Tanzania. I would like to understand how helpful this is to the Ugandan rice farmer. Thank you.
I think there was another hand that was up near the back. Have you changed your mind? Oh, yes. Okay.
Thank you, Peter. My name is Ian Rumanyika. I'm the head external affairs at Uganda Bati. And thank you for inviting us. My issue is on standards. As Uganda Bati, we pride ourselves in manufacturing steel, but steel of quality. As we facilitate industrialization in the region, we have had a number of manufacturers that have come up to manufacture, yes, which is good. We have a challenge where they are not following standards, which outcompetes the investors, the genuine investors that have really invested in making sure that we put quality for East Africans on the market. Ranging from Arusha to Nairobi to Moshi to Kampala here, go to Kigali, there and South Sudan markets. There are factories that are penetrating these markets without proper standards, and that is outcompeting us, because then that means they will cut prices, use price penetration, and the investor is left without margins. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Romanyika. I think we shall take just one more question, and then we shall interrupt the flow and continue straight into the program. There was one question to the far right.
Thank you very much. From West Josephat, MP Buganga South. When Honorable Mushaga was starting, he said that we are disrespected, and that is, I can't doubt that. But when I quickly checked, I found out that Africa, which has about 5 time zones, almost equivalent to USA, with possibly the same time zones, has about 50 plus presidents, yet America has only one president. When I quickly checked, I found that the combined GDP of Africa is about 2,900 billion US dollars. Yes, America has about 10 times more, about 22 billion GDP. I don't think we can ever be respected by such world powers unless we translate from just talking about integration, but actually integrate today and not tomorrow with a common market and possibly a political union. If we have to survive and we avoid being consumed sooner or later, we should start now and really gear towards political integration, or else time will tell that we may never survive sooner or later. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Responses to those questions will come after this break of formalities. Once again, I would welcome the Right Honorable Deputy Speaker, my friend, Thomas Tayebwa, who we fondly call Titi. You're welcome, sir. May I now take the privilege to invite the person who has championed women emancipation in Uganda, held key positions nationally and internationally. She is indeed the first woman to be elected speaker in the history of the Parliament of Uganda. a woman member of Parliament, Kamuli District, now the first Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for EAC Affairs, Right Honorable Rebecca Alitwala Kadaga. Madam, you're welcome to make your remarks.
Thank you very much, Honorable Polot. Honorable Speaker, Uganda National Assembly, Speaker of the Yala, our friend and neighbor, Dr. Lumumba, district members of parliament. Sorry to kind of disrupt your activities, but I have to prepare a cabinet paper which I should submit by 3 p.m. Concerning the summit where we have just been the last 1 week. So I'll make a few points and I'll leave you to continue with the discussion. Let me thank Honorable Mshega, always humorous, for his presentation. Let me also thank Honorable Kateshumbwa and the members for this forum, which has kept the message of integration alive. Indeed, you are fulfilling a historical desire of the people of East Africa. We started our collaboration in 1917 as Kenya and Uganda with the Customs Union. Tanganyika joined us in 1927. Because of the need to continue working together, we established the East African High Commission, where our governors of the protectorates represented us. We also had, at a later stage, the East African Common Services Organization, which came into effect just before independence. After that, of course, we had the East African Community. But along the way, we had many structures. For the lawyers, you know that we had the East African Court of Appeal. Many of you have been using the law reports of that time. The difference now is that the East African Court of Justice handles issue of the treaty and lately issue of the Customs Union and the Common Market Protocol. We also had the Legislative Assembly of 3 governors. I'm glad now that we have 9 members for each country to speak for us at the East African community. Now, are we satisfied with where we are? I think I'll leave that to you to see what is that we want to do. When we had the common services, we had the common airline, common railways, common harbors. These states even had to go into the airspace of partner states. At the summit last week, we were discussing how we can liberalize the airspace. But now almost each country has their own airline, protective of their routes, and so on. For those of us who are not at the ocean, we can no longer boast of a harbor. It belongs to those who are near to the ocean. We have our own postal services. We're struggling with the railway, with some having a standard gauge railway, others have a meter gauge railway, others have nothing. But we have our program of the 4 pillars: the Customs Union, the Common Market, Monetary Union, and the Political Federation. customs union is in place. However, you've heard about how little we are trading with one another. The East African community countries trade 85% with Europe as a bloc. At the last meeting last week, we set a new program, ambitious, but I thought it's important to be ambitious, to say that within 5 years, we would like the trade to rise from 15% to 50%. But that will require really seriously addressing the non-tariff barriers. I found interesting things at the community. One of them was the and partnership states unwilling to establish the Trade Remedies Committee. This committee is what is supposed to handle the issues that Honorable Margot has raised on rice, the issues of our constant quarrels with Kenya about our maize, our sugar, and so on. So at the summit last week, we agreed that we set a timetable. So all the countries report at the third meeting that we have completed the requirements for that committee. The other area where I found lethargy is the issue of sanctions. I found that in the community, they are pussyfooting about non-payment, pussyfooting about non-attendance. So I told them that I don't want to be part of that. And I demanded that at the next meeting, the 43rd meeting, the issue of sanctions must be addressed comprehensively and it's on right. So that we bring some, as Honorable Mushega said, if you belong to a club, there are rules for being a part of that club. Now, the Common Market Protocol, is it working? A bit and a bit not. Because the Common Market Protocol involves the freedom of movement of goods. How much of our goods are moving freely between one partner state to another? How many services? Someone mentioned the professions. I think it's only the architects and the engineers who have achieved mutual recognition agreement within the East African community. So the other professions really have to move very fast, including my own, the lawyers, who have been very slow to acknowledge and appreciate the qualifications achieved in different partner states. Movement of persons. This is still a challenge, despite having East African passports, which not everybody has. In some countries, you're required not to have identity cards. So we still have to streamline that area to enable our people to move. Like what Mushega said, me, I'm a child of the community because my father worked in the East African community. And I was a beneficiary of some of the privileges of the East African community. Before the age of 12, I was able to travel to Mombasa by train from Uganda. And I will never forget Fort Jesus, still in my head now. But we went by train all the way. It was subsidized by the East African community. So this is the kind of thing that we'd like to see now and for our generation. So the movement of persons is still a problem. What about capital? I think capital is also a problem. And when you consider that, for instance, the partner state of Uganda, we don't have a bank. We are relying on Equity Bank, a Kenyan bank. I call it the Bank of Integration because they are all over East Africa. KCB, EcoBank, all those. But where is the Ugandan bank in this integration? We are spectators. These are some of the areas that would help us to achieve aspects of the common market. What about the rights of residents? How easy is it for a Ugandan national to go and set up home in Kisumu? What are the requirements? How do you get a house? How do you get land, etc.? All those are still a problem. How does a Congolese person come to set up a house in Mbale, start business? All these are areas that we need to handle under the Common Market Protocol. We are getting slightly behind on the monetary union. We had hoped that by 2024, we would have the common currency, but there has been a slight delay in identifying the location of the East African Monetary Institute, which would transform into the East African Central Bank. 4 countries bidded: Uganda, Tanzania, Burundi, and Kenya. We are still in the process of identifying where the monetary institute will go, and thereafter the East African Central Bank, which will work on the common currency. Our ultimate goal is the political federation. This is not also on course. Originally, a target had been set for, I think, 2007, but this has not been possible. There was some lethargy within the partner states, and a new arrangement was made to consult about a confederation rather than a federation. Consultations began, but they've only taken place in Uganda and in Burundi. The recent summit, we directed the partner states of Kenya to handle their consultation in February next year after the elections, but the partner state of Tanzania and Rwanda, where there are no elections, to handle their consultation this year, so that we move. But of course, now that we have expanded, we may have to continue the consultations with the Republic of South Sudan, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and if Somalia comes as they are trying to get in, we may also have to consult on that issue. But that's where we stand. We are not on course. Now, about the participation of the national MPs in the legislation and activities of the East African community, I reminded Speaker Ngoga that we used to have the Nanyuki series. I requested him to start again the Nanyuki series, where members of the parliaments of the entire community would converge together with the YALA in order the partner states to review areas of collaboration. I hope it can be done, and we start moving. Now, Honorable Mushega is understandably concerned about the quality of leaders at the East African community. We are making a start. We are due to appoint 2 deputy secretary generals, but we have agreed now to do it on merit. So we shall, the committee will advertise, the countries will shortlist, and then the Council of Ministers will take the final decision based purely on merit. So I think we are making a start, having faltered in some areas. Now, this week, if Parliament was on, I was planning to come and lay a number of the acts of the community, but this will be done as soon as you reopen, because as a requirement under Article 65 of the treaty. Then I also wanted to speak very briefly about our languages. Since February 2021, French and Swahili are part of our, Swahili is actually our lingua franca, and we'll also be coming to inform the House about the implementation of the directive of the heads of state to make Swahili one of our official languages. It has been in the Constitution since 1995, but not much was done about it. But now we really have to pick it up because we need to speak to our fellow members in the partner states. French is also coming along, and we are going to start with the cabinet. We are going to make arrangements whereby every Monday from 9 to 10, we take Swahili lessons Then from 10 onwards, we have the ordinary cabinet meeting, and so on and so forth. We also have a program for the parliamentarians. I'd written to the clerk some time back. I think now we can formally activate it. Later, we shall cascade to the local governments. And of course, ultimately, Swahili should be made examinable and compulsory. I've had some people unhappy about Swahili, complaining that's the language of the oppressors. But when you remember that we're oppressed as Africans by the white people, but we are speaking their language. We actually tell our children, if you don't pass English, you are going to pass. But those are our oppressors. So similarly, I think that we should, yes, take into account the past, but to have, for the first time in the history of the African people, an indigenous language of the African people, oppressed, humiliating, enslaved, finally, to be a language of the United Nations, I think it's a very, very big achievement, and we should embrace the Swahili. So as I said, I'm heading out to do a cabinet paper. No, one final thing, the integration of the African continent is really what is desired, and the Abuja Plan of Action required that we start by making our regional blocks effective and then joining them together. But it is true, what I see is ECOWAS still in ECOWAS, the SADC still in SADC, the Association of Central African States on their own, the IGAD, the AAC, the COMESA, the Maghreb region. So I think that UNA members should now increase the impetus for the integration by speaking more about it. And I want to, I like what Honorable, I don't know whether it was Honorable Katesh who said, no, Honorable Mushega, who said, how often do we discuss issues of the community in the House? So I think that is something we need to change to ensure that we are part of that conversation. Thank you very much, and have good deliberations.
I think Right Honorable Kadaga deserves a better round of applause than that. Madam Kadaga, as she rightly said, is a child of the East African community. And not only a child of it, she was a champion and understands it much better than many people, especially since she was also a minister for East African affairs when she was starting her political career. So thank you very much, Madam. And thank you for the changes in the EAC. I think people have taken note. Those of you who are able to start learning Swahili now, please do so before it trickles down to you. You might be miles ahead of everybody else. And of course, if you can do French as well, you are definitely much more marketable. So distinguished guests, I know there were quite a few people who still had some questions. I had seen Honorable Mike Kennedy Sebalu at the back. We are honored to have you here, especially as District Governor, Rotary District 9213. So Honorable Sebalu, you are most welcome, and congratulations on ascending to that position. And even as the microphone goes to him, allow me to just recognize a few guests that we have here today. We have an eminent team, a large team from South Sudan. Could we have all of you please rise to your feet? Can we see you so we can formally welcome you? Now, the members from South Sudan, we are extremely honored to have you here. And we know that you've come specifically to also learn about PEACA and how you can be involved and the lessons you can pick that you will take back home. So we welcome you, and we hope that you shall have a fruitful discussion with the rest of our members. Thank you very much. Now, our different partners who are here, I'll recognize you now. Seatini, if your representative is here, we just want to see where you are. Seatini have been partners with PEACA from the beginning, and they have been quite key in the planning for this. Okay. Oxfam, the team from Oxfam, we thank you for your involvement. You're most welcome. Is Action Aid here? Action Aid, we also thank them so much for their involvement. Uganda Bati, thank you for joining us today. And your concerns were noted. ERC, I believe they're here as well. Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for attending. Civil Aviation Authority, CAA, Uganda Civil Aviation Authority. We welcome you and we thank you. And of course, our partners in the media, especially NBS Television, who are showing this live. So you are being broadcast to the rest of the world. Thank you very much all for your involvement in this program. Now, distinguished guests, we are going to have a military lunch. What I mean by a military lunch is we would like to break for not more than 30 minutes. We all need to be seated here within 30 minutes to receive His Excellency, the President. So let me invite you to walk in military style to the Speak Ballroom, which is just behind us, upstairs, and we can have a very quick lunch, reconvene here, and all be seated by the time we're joined by His Excellency, the President. So once again, I thank you, and I ask that you kindly observe time, not East African time, not time from DRC or other places. Let's observe the 30-minute rule, and please be back here in time to receive His Excellency, the President. Thank you very much.
Thank you.